I never know when this goes live. I think we're there. YouTube need to do something about this. There needs to be a I can hear myself echoing now as well. It's all going wrong, but it is Friday, I guess. Um, let me stop that. There we go. Hello, guys. Sorry for that awful intro. That was dreadful. But yeah, when you start a YouTube live, because I do this through StreamYard, I never really know when it started because the stream itself, which I'm checking on here basically, is always about 10 seconds behind. But I think we're live. Firstly, can you hear me? Is everything fine? Can you see me? Hopefully you can. Excuse me. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you're well. And yeah, welcome to another Solo Club stream, he says, trying to get his words out. I'm a bit tired today, hence the awful preparation and terrible presentation techniques going on here. The reason I am fairly tired is because it's been quite a big week, which I'll explain in a moment. But in the meantime, just very quickly, again, thank you for joining. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Got an awful lot planned with this channel, and it's growing really quickly, which is it's just so exciting. Also, the reason for these streams is firstly for me to waffle on about something to do with being a content creator and a YouTuber, but also to give you guys the opportunity to ask me any questions. And I do mean within reason, any question. This isn't a tech channel, so it's worth bearing that in mind. If you've got questions about MacBooks and iPhones, I love those questions, but they really are for marketer's reviews. I'd love just to keep this really in a kind of realm of content creation and being a solopreneur and all that sort of stuff. So pop your questions in the comments and I will keep an eye on them, or in the live chat. Sorry, I need to get in with this live YouTube live lingo. But yeah, use the chat window to add your comments, questions, etc. And periodically I'll pop them up on the screen and do my best to answer them. So I thought the reason I'd come on today is have a chat really about two things. One of them is traveling abroad and creating content while you're there and making the most of a trip. And secondly, collaborating, because I've had quite a good week, very good week in terms of a collaboration that I've done with a fellow YouTuber who is he on here? I don't think, Alex Gear and Tech's on here. Hi, Alex, who's another fantastic tech YouTuber. It wasn't with Alex, although we will do that at some stage, I promise. He doesn't know that, but I'm sure he'd be up for it. But yeah, I'll come on to that in a moment. But firstly, I thought I'd mention, like I say, the whole business of traveling and creating content, because before I started Mark Ellis Reviews, I used to watch, I still do, watch a lot of tech YouTubers and other YouTubers who make content while they're traveling the world. And it always looks brilliant. It always looks like so much fun. You know, they're walking around with cameras vlogging and GoPros stuck to things and doing all this really cool stuff with drones and what have you. And like anything, it looks not easy, but it looks a lot more enjoyable than it often is. And don't get me wrong, as I always say, I love this business. I wouldn't change it for the world. But everything you do and everything you do for the first time as a content creator is never quite as it's not quite what you expect at all. It's much, much harder, basically. And filming stuff while you're traveling in a vlog style is very difficult, and it's difficult for all sorts of reasons. One of them is the practical element. So you've got to make sure you've got everything in order. So if you're filming with a camera, I wasn't this time for reasons which will become clear in the video that will hit the channel in a couple of weeks. I was using an iPad mini as my main camera, but generally speaking, you'll have a proper camera possibly. Like I say, you might have things like GoPros, drones, etc. All of that stuff needs to be ready to shoot at any time, whenever you need it, basically. So batteries need to be on point. Your memory cards need to be free and available and empty. And you just need to be ready to shoot. So there's the practical element of it. There's the element of storytelling and building a narrative. So you do have to go with a plan. You have to have an idea of what the video is that you're making. You can't really just start shooting. Well, you can just start shooting and rambling on to the camera, but you're not going to build a story. So you do need, like you would do with any YouTube video, you need a proper structure. For instance, Casey Neistat is a great example of this. He doesn't just create his vlogs from start to finish without thinking about what he's doing. He's got a very solid narrative and story structure built into it. So you've got that, and then you've got the kind of, I suppose, the elephant in the room, which is being someone who's walking around a city or town or wherever you happen to be, talking to him or herself into a camera, which is never normal. And no matter how big vlogging gets and how popular being a YouTuber becomes, which and it's massively popular as we know, you can I genuinely cannot think of the last time that I saw someone walking around anywhere really, whether it be my hometown of Leamington and Warwick, or any of the cities and countries I've been to recently. I can't remember seeing anyone walking around with a camera with a big mic talking to it. I just I can't remember that. I can't picture that ever. In fact, I don't think I've ever witnessed anyone doing that. So it's still quite a rare thing to do, and because of that, you do become quite self-conscious. I've done it a lot now, and I'm less self-conscious now. I can kind of pretty much do it in most settings without worrying too much. But I do still have that kind of slightly nervous feeling about getting a camera out in public and talking to it. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. So you've got all that stuff, and then I can guarantee, like I mentioned earlier, even if you have a plan, you'll get to the end of your day shooting or your end of your couple of days shooting, whatever it might be, and every time you'll think, What on earth have I filmed?" I did this week. I spent nearly 3 days doing this kind of filming, and every time I do this, I always end that time away thinking, I've got no idea what I've shot. I've got no idea if I've built that narrative, if the story makes sense, if I've got the right footage, if I hit record in the most important moments, even though I try to remember to check it and all that sort of stuff. There's all these things built into it, which again, all of that combined makes it a less enjoyable experience than you might think. It's still exhilarating and exciting, but it's damn hard work. So that is one thing I'd say, first of all, if you're thinking about doing this. And this does relate to, like I say, a very specific type of filmmaking, of YouTube making, which is vlog style videos. But they are on the rise again, thankfully. I think it's a good thing. And yeah, just bear that in mind if you're doing that. But you do have to make the most of these trips. So that this week I went to Brussels basically, and I went there on Wednesday afternoon, stayed over the Wednesday night, had the whole day of Thursday creating stuff, and then stayed over the Thursday night as well, and then had about 2/3 of the Friday yesterday to carry on doing some stuff. Now, when you're in a place like Brussels in Belgium, it's very tempting, particularly when the weather's very nice, like it was this week, and you're surrounded by lovely restaurants and beautiful, parts of the city and beer and waffles and all that stuff. It's very tempting to get lost in that as a tourist, and it's fine to do part of that, to spend some time and make the most of being there. But you are working, and that's something I've really had to nail down on. Really focus on getting stuff done, and because it costs. I had to pay for the flight, although the video is sponsored. It still costs me. I've still got to come out of my own pocket in terms of the flight and the subsistence and all that sort of stuff. I've got to feed myself, hotels, etc. So you do have to make it work. You are there for work. It's worth bearing that in mind. Although if you do follow me on Instagram, and if you spot my stories when I'm away, you may wonder if I am doing any work at all. I promise I am. So yeah, you've got to really make the most of that time while you're abroad. The other, I suppose, the downside of this, and the thing that I have struggled with more recently for obvious reasons, I say obvious reasons because I've become a dad, is being away from the family. That's not much fun at all, really. My son Harrison is a year old at the end of this month, which is, it's happened so quickly. But he's at that age now where he's really developing his personality. He's just, he's always been awesome, but he gets more awesome every day. And the more time you spend away from him, the harder it gets. I work 6 days a week at the moment, and well, 5.5, let's say. And that does, it does kind of pull at your heartstrings quite a bit. And when you go away, particularly when you're away on these kind of trips for an extended period, even if it's only 3 days, you miss the little guy. And but you have to do it because it's work, it's business. So again, if anyone is watching this either on the live stream or once it's up as a regular video, if you're watching this thinking that you want to get into this game and you love the idea of travel vlogging and all that kind of thing, then just bear those things in mind. Part of the reason that I started Solo Club was to lift the veil on this industry and this type of work, because you can go into it quite naively. I did in certain respects. I knew it would be hard work. I didn't know how much how hard the work would be. It's the most enjoyable work I've ever done, but nothing is quite as it seems once you're in it. So always bear those things in mind. The other thing that I did while I was there was a collaboration, like I say, and I don't think he's on this live stream, but um, it was with Patrick Rambles, who, if you don't know, you probably do, but if you don't, he's another tech YouTuber, very similar channel size to mine. We started at pretty much the same time, I think, back in 2020, and he's great. I mean, just like Alex, I count him as a very good friend. Alex, Patrick, and myself do have a little not WhatsApp, it's a Telegram chat where we talk about all sorts of things, don't we, Alex? We kind of share troll stories and dealings with sponsors and all this sort of stuff. And we have a great laugh, but it's also, there's a serious part to this as well. It's an amazing support network. I advise anyone who gets into this game to make friends. The wonderful thing about content creation is that there is no real competition. You could call some certain elements of it competition, but when it comes to your fellow creators, even if they're in the same niche as you, there's no competition. Make friends, spend time with each other, build those little WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups, and just share experiences. And another great aspect of this is collaborating, and this is another way to basically to grow your channel. There's no hiding behind this at all. That the reason that YouTubers do undertake collaborations is basically to grow each. The two YouTubers in the video want to extend their channel, extend their reach, and if they partner for just one video or several videos with another YouTuber, they open themselves up to a much bigger audience. And when you do it within the same niche, which is what you tend to do, you often find that for example, myself and Patrick share much of the same audience, but equally, there's a big portion of both of our audiences that doesn't follow the other creator. So there's people that follow me that don't follow Patrick, and vice versa. So the idea is that you get together, you do a video together, you publish that on one of the channels, you return the favor for the other channel, and then in theory, you manage to get a few subscribers across. And we'll see how this works out, because I think the video that we made will go live over the weekend. I think I don't want to speak for Patrick, but I know he's editing it at the moment, and fingers crossed we should see it in the next few days. But so it'll be interesting to see what impact that has on my subscriber number. I'm not expecting a massive number of people to come in, but it would be nice to pick up the people who should be following both of us. Persona 1600, someone I used to work with, a good mate, although we haven't spoken for ages. Sorry, Pete. Lovely to have you here. It's what I love. I love doing these live streams when random people who you actually know pop up. It's brilliant. So I headed over to Brussels mainly to do this collaboration with Patrick, and it was brilliant. It was so good, and I obviously went to his studio, which is, I mean, you can't see my studio where this camera is, but if you've watched any Mark Ellis reviews videos, in fact, even in those, you don't see the full extent of the mess. But it's a real working studio. It's a bit of a workshop. There's just stuff everywhere, cables everywhere, and things left out. And that's kind of the way that I work. Whereas you walk into Patrick's, and although that is obviously a working studio as well, it's just serene, beautifully designed. He's got all the lovely things on the wall, wood paneling, everything about it, perfect lighting all the time, nice fake plants everywhere. It's one of those things where you walk in and you just think, I need to tidy my studio. Anyway, that's by the by. So we went to his studio and did this kind of collaboration video where we compared iPad mini setups. So without giving anything away, we both stood next to each other on a table with our bags and went through our setups and commented on each other's setup. And it was completely unscripted, apart from the intro, which we still screwed up. And it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Although, again, it was one of those videos where you finish it and you think, we both looked at each other and said, what did we just do then? What did we say? It goes so quickly and you don't really know what you're saying. Well, you know what you're saying, but you don't really, it's all completely off the cuff, basically. So, but whenever I've seen collaboration videos from other YouTubers that I admire, it's clear they're doing the same thing. Very unscripted, very much looser than a normal scripted video, obviously. and just a lot of fun. So, so that's the reason for doing that collaboration. It was the main reason for going to Brussels, and yeah, you'll see the results of that in the next few days, hopefully. And I also interviewed Patrick for this channel, so for the Solo Club podcast, which will start appearing soon. I've got about 6 of those interviews in the bag now. They've all been brilliant. Alex is one of the. In fact, Alex will probably be the first one that gets published, but they will start appearing. But I took the opportunity while I was in Belgium, while I was in Patrick's studio, to do that interview. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, it was about maximizing my time there and coming back with as much content as possible, and just making it feel like it was worth it, which it absolutely was. So that was exciting. They were the main things I wanted to talk about, really, guys. I thought then we could just dive into a few questions, because as always, rather than me just waffling on about this stuff, which hopefully is interesting, what is far more interesting is the questions that you have. And as always, I do this on my own. I don't have anyone looking at the questions, so it's all a bit, belt and braces. But let's go through there's a lot of comments coming through here. Please start asking questions, and like I say, you can ask anything as long as it isn't tech related, because like I say, this isn't a tech channel. But yeah, hit me with your questions. I've got 30 people watching at the minute, which is pretty awesome. Hello, Andy. Hello, Jakob. Lots of the regulars here, which is always good. I'm just looking to see if we've got loving the new channel. Thank you, Johan. Hopefully I've pronounced your name correctly. Thank you very much. Ian of Tech, you've been following Mark Ellis reviews. Still laughing at you responding to my Superdry sponsorship query with a quick change. Oh, I remember that. Didn't I do like an edit where I suddenly was wearing a Superdry t-shirt? I vaguely remember that. That was a long time ago. That was a really long time ago, actually. Good memory. Alex, always up for let's put him on here. I've just realized that I can do this. There we go. Looks more professional, doesn't it? Alex Gear and Tech, always up for a collab. Absolutely. Please go and check out Alex's channel. Just search for Alex Gear and Tech. You'll find it very quickly. I think Alex makes some of the most unique tech reviews on YouTube. And I'm not just saying that because he's here. He absolutely does. So please go and check him out. Hello, Andy. Hello, Alan. Again, lots of familiar faces. Right, we've got a question here, I think. So luxury. I nearly said luxury. Then that wouldn't make unless that is how you pronounce it. Hi, Mark. How did you go about scheduling content if you're going to be away for an extended period of time? That's a really good question. I suppose there's 2 types of content that I create. So the first one is the written stuff. It's the blogs. I tend to, although I have tried to do this time blocking where I spend a day writing. Occasionally I still do that, but I've found that quite difficult. So I still mainly write stuff each day. So I write today's blog post today in the first thing in the morning. The great thing about traveling with a laptop, or in my case this week with an iPad mini, is that you can still write those blogs. You can still publish them. Although I do have the benefit now of having a little team that does that. So I write the stuff. I upload it to WordPress. I then have a guy who formats the WordPress blog, does all that stuff, does some of the SEO bits and pieces, hits publish, and then I've got someone else, my VA, who does the Medium publishing. So he does all the importing into Medium and goes from there. So the blogging, I can pretty much do that while I'm away. If I know that I'm going to be incredibly tight for time traveling, then I might write 2 or 3 blog posts in advance. But this trip was a great example where I just had the time. So in the morning, for instance, when I was working with, the day that I was going to work with Patrick, I had the morning free. So I spent the morning writing, basically. And then the next day, once I'd finished with Patrick, and I had that 2/3 of a day to do other stuff, I wrote in the morning. And when it comes to videos, I just make sure they're done beforehand. And again, this trip fell quite nicely. There wasn't too much stuff to do video-wise. I think I'd done Wednesday's video, for instance, was in the can, scheduled for YouTube. It's just planning ahead. That's all it is. It does get a bit more complicated when you have sponsors, because you have to work to the sponsors, quite often to the sponsor's schedule. Or if you're working to your own schedule, you've then got to get approvals through and all that sort of stuff. But it really is just working ahead, really. I do batch content as well with social media. So for Twitter and LinkedIn, that's all batched throughout the week. Great question, though. Andy, I think there's a question here. Andy, are you aware of any content creator conventions in the UK where creators meet up? I'm trying to find creative friends myself, but really struggling with it. This is a really good question, Andy, because there aren't that many, really. There's a big one in the US, which I've completely forgotten the name of it, but it's in Texas this year. I've gone completely blank on what it is. But the point, that's irrelevant. The point being that a lot of this stuff is very US centric. And that's great, but it's also expensive to get over there and useless if you're not running this as a business, because you probably haven't got the cash to invest in that sort of travel. So there's not anything that I'm aware of. If anyone knows, jump in the chat. I mean, Alex, you may know, but I know Alex, Patrick, and I have talked about this kind of thing, and maybe we could make something happen. Who knows? I'd love for this kind of thing to happen. This is, again, partly why I created Solo Club. I wanted to have a community. It's about building a community, really. So yeah, who knows? Maybe we could get something going, Andy. But I personally don't know of anything like that, unfortunately. Persona 1600 says, I have a serious question for you this week. We'll catch up soon. That sounds interesting. I won't put you on the screen in that case, Pete, if it's something private. Let's have a look. Here we go. I won't try and pronounce your name. I'm terrible with pronouncing names. I don't want to get them wrong, so I won't try this one. But hey, Mark, do you watch many movies/series? Any recommendations to my big list already? I try and watch as much as possible, but as any parent on here will know, particularly new parents, you get less time when your child is very small because they need you more in the evening. So we do tend to split the going upstairs to check if he's okay thing. Well, that's getting less now. He's sleeping through most of the night. But in terms of what I've watched recently, Succession is, I think, one of the best things ever to be put on TV. It's amazing. Ted Lasso. I love Ted Lasso. I think the first season was brilliant. Absolutely just joyful thing. I'm going to be quite controversial now. We'll see how many people leave the stream. I'm not that keen on the second season. It feels, is it the second season or the third season? Whichever season it is, the current one. I think it's not the second or third. Is it the fourth? Whatever it is. The current season of Ted Lasso, the previous ones were great. The current season, I think, feels a bit stretched. It feels a bit contrived. I just don't find it very funny. We've lost two people on the stream, probably Ted Lasso fans. Never mind. But in terms of anything else I'm watching, if you're not watching Drive to Survive, doesn't matter if you don't like F1. I mean, I'm a big F1 fan these days, but if you don't like F1, it doesn't matter. My girlfriend's not a massive F1 fan, and she loves Drive to Survive. Definitely watch that. Apart from that, we just watch loads of baby TV stuff, which is horrendous. Lewis, hello. John, hello. Lots of people coming on. Awesome. Jakob, you've got a question, which looks quite interesting. What was that donut with egg and chocolate? Let me find the photo just so we know what Jakob's referring to, because this is an incredibly important thing. I know I said, let's not have too many questions about tech, and now we're talking about donuts, but food questions are definitely allowed. Here we go. So this is not a particularly enticing image, but I'll show you it anyway. Can you see that? Not the best image at all. Basically, I don't know what it was, Jakob. It was one of those things where, because I was obviously in a foreign country, I don't speak French, unfortunately. I'm one of those terrible British people who doesn't speak anything apart from English. And I saw that, and I just thought, I want one of them. And I had to do that thing where you kind of go, can I point at what I want? And so I kind of pointed at it. And I think it was a donut. It didn't taste like a donut, but it looked like a donut. It had the same consistency as a donut, and it had chocolate on the top, and it had some kind of custardy thing in the middle. It was amazing, basically. I think I put on about 4 stone while I was there. Yeah, the food in Belgium, amazing. And the beer. Robert, hi, how do you know the amount of time to devote between Solo Club and Mark Ellis reviews? Really good question. It's just planning out my week, really. I don't devote a specific amount of time, or I don't really think of it like a percentage of my time. I just do what needs to be done. So the best way of describing this, I suppose, really is that the bulk of my time is still Mark Ellis reviews, because I publish typically 2 videos each week for Mark reviews, sometimes more. So those 2 videos minimum have to happen. As with the blogs are very important as well. So that stuff has to happen. I then now have this live stream each week. So for 1 hour each week, this happens without fail. I also have one regular video to publish for Solo Club. That happens without fail. So it's just getting those things done. So I don't think about it too much in terms of devoting time to it. I just have usually specific days on which I create the content or do these live streams, etc., or write the Solo Club, SUBSTACK newsletter. It's just getting the kind of to-do list items done, really, Robert. That tends to be the way that I do it. John, is there a completely unhelpful piece of advice you see everyone giving and you wish they wouldn't? A completely unhelpful piece of advice. That's such a good question. I'm going to have a think about that and a very quick slurp of water. Unhelpful piece of advice. Oh God, that's really tricky. It's tricky because most advice that you get from other people in this industry is pretty solid, I think. I think one of the most unhelpful pieces of advice, not just for this really, but something that I've always heard whenever you start going out on your own, is that you need to work for free to get anywhere, to build up your portfolio and all this sort of stuff. I did that in my previous kind of freelancing thing. And I wish I hadn't really, because I think that resulted in me having contracts that were very low paid, because they went from being free to being just low paid, because you're setting a standard of not charging anything, basically. So I think now I'm a bit older and I've kind of worked out how this stuff works. And I know that people do have budgets. And I know that as a business owner myself, I will pay for people straight away because I want them to feel valued and do a good job. Don't work for free. Don't set that standard. It does apply very much to this industry because, as some people on this call will know, including particularly Alex, there is an issue with certain brands, some big brands actually, seemingly content or feeling that it's okay just to send products as payment for sponsored videos. It isn't at all. We need to be paid for our time and for access to our audience. So yeah, don't work for free. That is definitely the most unhelpful piece of advice I've seen. Jakob. Oh, that's the same one. Sorry. Still getting used to this. How much time will Gling save you weekly? So if you haven't heard about this yet, Gling, G-L, as you spelled it there, Gling.ai is the website. I'm not affiliated with them. I have no partnership or anything with them at all. But Gling is basically an AI video editor. So you take a raw piece of footage like this, for instance, chuck it into Gling, click a couple of buttons, and within 4 or 5 minutes, it spits out a completely or pretty much edited clip, which has removed all of the silences and all of the mistakes, and it's picked what it thinks is the best takes. Now, typically I do that. So most YouTubers will do that themselves. So you film yourself talking, you don't make all these mistakes and stuff. And typically I'll have 40 minutes of footage perhaps that needs to be whittled down to 8 to 10 minutes. That takes about an hour of my time to do it. And a lot of it is very laborious. It's cutting out that period of silence. It's trying to find the best, version of that piece, that thing that I'm trying to say. It's getting rid of that swear word, etc., etc. It's quite boring. And Gling just does it for you, like I say, in about 5 minutes. And you end up with this thing that you can import into Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere or, DaVinci Resolve. And you need to do a little bit of tweaking with it, obviously, but it's just... Alex introduced me to this actually. So thank you, Alex. And we had this thing, I think it was a week ago or so ago, where we were just voice noting each other saying, I can't believe what this is doing. I've just, it's literally just saved me my entire evening of editing. So in terms of how much time it will save me weekly, at the moment, I'm only using Gling for Solo Club videos. For marketing reviews, it's a little bit more complicated for reasons I won't go into now, but it's because I have lots of different clips and I haven't quite worked out how best to do that with Gling yet. But with Solo Club, it's just one long thing basically. So it's probably, in total, it's probably a couple of hours a week, maybe just under, which is huge, absolutely massive. So go and check it out. It's amazing. Lots of questions coming in. UK Gunman, interesting name. Would be interested to see what your family's thoughts are on your work and your approach to it. Would your partner be interested in appearing? Jen, I don't think she will, to be honest. Not because she doesn't want to. I think this is. I was going to say it's natural for me. It's not natural for me. This is never natural talking to a camera. It gets a bit more normal after a while, but or it normalizes. That's what I was trying to say. But if you don't do it, and that's not Jen's job, isn't to do this. I think it's probably a little bit daunting. And I don't know. There's a certain part of my life I like to just keep personal, really, and that's not because I'm a massively private person. I think it really kind of aids that cutting things off, cutting off the work and your family, because the more you take your work home, the more problems there are, basically. And I work quite long hours, and my girlfriend is the most understanding person I've ever met in my entire life. She's amazingly supportive. I genuinely could not do this without her. She's not watching this, I don't think, so I'm not just saying this because she's here. She may never see this, but she is the most supportive person I've ever met. And yeah, it makes all the difference. And I think because of that, I think it's best just to keep that separate. Interestingly, bit of inside baseball, she does work for this business, so she does do a lot of the kind of admin-y type stuff that I used to do but don't have the time for now. So invoicing and some of the sort of correspondence with sponsors and things, and podcast bits and pieces. So she actually does quite a bit for the business already. But yeah, I don't think I'll get to the stage of them appearing in. Eddie does, the dog does quite regularly appear in videos, but that's a bit different. VidCon, that Alex. So I was trying to think of the name of the industry, YouTube gathering in America. It's called VidCon. Thank you, Alex. Had a complete brain freeze on that. Andy says, thank you for answering. It's a shame there isn't anything like that in the UK, going back to the whole UK creator thing. I totally agree, but maybe we can do something. Who knows? Alan. Hey, Mark, what made you choose Sony camera equipment over brands like Canon, Nikon, etc.? I used to be a Canon man for years and years and years. So my past, I've always been a very kind of keen photographer, and I always used Canon stuff. My very first DSLR was a Canon something 40D or something. Until I started noticing a lot of people on YouTube using Sony stuff. And and then I bought the Sony FX3, which is over there, which just is the most impressive, in fact, I think it is the most impressive thing I've bought for this business. I shouldn't say this, but touchwood never lets me down. The image quality is just beautiful. It's rock solid, never goes wrong. I shouldn't say this. It's just incredible. So I just love Sony. I've always been a fan of Sony. So I just swapped everything from Canon to Sony. I'm doing this on a Sony A7 Mark IV, if you're interested. Love it. They make lovely lenses and everything about them. Love them. Not affiliated or sponsored. Do you have to say that each time? I don't think you do you? Let's have a look. Alan is recommending Silo on Apple TV in terms of things to watch. Lewis, let's put this one on here. Lewis, is the Muscles from Brussels, aka Patrick Rambles, coming to your studio after your visit? Firstly, yeah, he's a big guy. I mean, I work out at the gym, but I'm not big. I get to the point. I get to a stage that I'm happy with, but I'm by no means big. Patrick's a big guy in the best possible way. His arms are about as wide as me. So that's what that meant. But yeah, he'll absolutely come over here. Yeah, that's going to be a plan. Not sure when, but that will happen at some stage. Jakob, last time you mentioned content manager for this channel. Any progress in this area? Not sure yet. Possibly. Maybe not. I won't go into details, but maybe, possibly. But I do need someone to manage the channel, basically. For this to grow further and really go for it, I do need some help. So I'm possibly still looking, but more news on that soon. Alex is saying that Gling saves him at least 3 hours. That's amazing. 6 hours of an edit saved. I mean, this AI thing is just very quickly worth talking about that, actually. So, like I say, go and check out Gling just to get an idea of how smart this is. But it's only the start of this. This is vastly becoming a cliche, but it's only going to get better. So the stuff that we're seeing now is technically the worst version of it, and it's already brilliant. I won't say who it is, but I was talking to someone who works for a very prominent I have to be very careful what I say here, but very prominent tech publication. Very famous one. And I was talking to him offline today, actually, and he mentioned that he used this phrase, which was post AI. And he said, I'm thinking now about post AI, what I'm going to do. And this guy, like I say, I won't say what he does, but he works within a big tech publication. And I've not asked him what he meant by this yet, because it was all in email communication. But he just came and he used this phrase, post AI, several times in this email, and it was all related to him, what he's going to do next, basically, as though we are going to get to this stage where AI will replace significant workforces within media, which I think we all know is unfortunately probably going to be the case. So as excited as I get with things like Gling and ChatGPT, all of which I use them regularly, I'm very conscious of what they mean for certain jobs and for certain professions. I mean, my previous job, my previous business to this would have been wiped out, I think, by ChatGPT, because a lot of it was based around business blogging. So it was about writing very boring blog posts for businesses. And you can just do, I mean, if I was running a business now that needed blog posts like that, I would not pay a writer. I'm sorry. I would get I'd get someone who can do the whole, what do they call it, prompting on ChatGPT to write these blog posts for me, because I'm a business owner. I'm thinking bottom line profit, efficiency, all that sort of stuff. So my previous business would probably have pretty much been wiped out. So I'm very conscious of this. And I don't know. I know there's a lot of talk. I know Elon Musk is one of the people who's kind of calling for a pause on AI development, which I think that must be the first time anyone has put their hand up and said, "Can we just slow down innovation, please?" So something needs to happen. There needs to be some controls around this. I don't know. I mean, I might do another live stream on AI soon, actually, because there's a lot to dig in with this, and it's scary and exciting at the same time, basically. Yeah. There we go. Steve, have you considered going to WWDC? Could get a hands-on with a 15-inch MacBook Air. Another tech question there, Steve. I'll let you off there. Yeah, it's very expensive to go to WWDC unless you are part of the kind of tech review crew who get invited. I'm not, so I don't get those invites, unfortunately. So I'd have to go over there and pay for it. I'd have to be I think I'd have to get a developer account and pay for the ticket, and it's probably not worth it, which sounds crazy, but when you factor in the cost, the overheads, and what I'd get from that ROI perspective on videos, not really worth it. I'd much rather, it would make much more sense, from a business perspective, to sit here and react to it and then get the products in afterwards, depending on what they launch. Good question though. Any other questions, guys? Greetings from Newcastle, from YouTube user. I like your username. How many other people have we got from the UK? And how many UK people have we got in here? And where are you watching from? I'm always fascinated by this. In fact, I haven't done a roll call about where everyone's based. So yeah, tell me where you're based in the chat. I'm also trying to get the timing of these live streams right. So I tend to go for 4 o'clock in the UK, just because that's a fairly decent time for people in the UK. If you're winding up your work by 4 o'clock, you may not be, but it does seem to work for UK people. But equally, I want to try and get people in from other countries, and America being my first biggest audience, I want to try and get you guys in, and it's tricky. Alan, I'm sat in a Black Sheep coffee shop in Reading. I love Black Sheep coffee shops. I always use them in London if I'm in London. India, Dallas, Texas, Charlotte, England, Ohio, East Midlands. Amazing. I love this. I love that how wide this stuff spreads. It's really exciting. I've got a question here. Mark says, do you have a recommendation for a good mic for a new starter in YouTube? I do. I'm not sure where it is. I won't bother going to get it. But for ages and ages, not ages, but for a fairly long time, both for this channel, for Marketless Reviews, and my previous role as a videographer for corporate stuff, I used a fairly cheap Rode lav mic. It's the one that I think it's compatible with smartphones. They kind of advertise it as a smartphone compatible lav mic basically, which just clips on here basically. Really cheap. I think it was about 50, 60 quid or something, and it was great. One, it never let me down, and two, the audio was really good as well. And lav mics have that benefit of you can move around and you don't have to worry about being in the right place for this sort of mic or for a shotgun. It's yeah, just if you just search for Rode lav mic and get the cheapest one you can find, that'll work. That'll work fine. Depends what your budget is. I mean, if you want to spend a bit more, get yourself a decent overhead shotgun. I've got the Rode NTG1 up here, which I'm not using for this, obviously, but that's not cheap, but it's for 300 quidish, I think. It's great. But then you need to have an audio interface and some other bits and pieces. So it starts to get a bit annoying then. Keep things simple. That's the best thing. Let's have a look. Lewis, biggest mistake you made since going full time and biggest win? Biggest mistake. What's the biggest mistake I've made? Biggest mistake, that's quite easy actually, was when was it? Last August. I suppose last July and last August, I started saying yes to a lot of sponsor requests. A lot of them came in at the same time. A lot of them were very well paid. Actually, they were very tempting. And I just kept saying yes to them and booking those videos in for, I think, around about September that year. Didn't think anything of it, like an idiot, and then got to September and suddenly thought, September, what happens in September? Oh yeah, the iPhone normally gets launched then. And I had no space for the iPhone content. I had all these, basically pretty much, in fact, I think it even went into October that I had most videos booked up for sponsors, and which makes it very nice and lots of revenue coming in, but totally screwed up my content calendar and meant that when the Apple stuff came along, I had to somehow squeeze it in, which meant I had to work ridiculously hard. I think that contributed to a lot of burnout that I was feeling at that time. I really worked my backside off for no other reason than that I just completely screwed up my content calendar. So I'm now very conscious of that. It's still very difficult to navigate that. I mean, I'm in a situation like that, similar situation at the moment, where it's getting a bit too close to June with stuff that I'm scheduling. And June, as some of you may know, is WWDC, as we mentioned earlier, for Apple, and that's a huge big deal for my brand and for my YouTube channel, the other one. So that was the biggest mistake. The biggest win, what was the biggest win? Biggest win, I think, actually, was probably the Porsche video. So when I reviewed the Porsche Taycan, the way that came about was through my PR guys. So I have an external PR team. I say team, there's a couple of people who it's basically their business, and I outsource PR to them. They had a very good contact at Porsche UK. Keep pronouncing it right, if you noticed. But yeah, a very good contact at Porsche UK. And yeah, it just worked out perfectly, really. And I brought in guys from down south, Pulse 8 Media. I don't think they're on this call, but on this live stream, Andy and Rob. And they did a brilliant job of the drone stuff and the B-roll and what have you. So in terms of a very big ticket brand and something completely different, because I have worked with other big brands like Google and Samsung and a few others, but there was something about that Porsche video that was a real. I'm a big car nut anyway, so that was obviously a big part of it. But also, it was just, yeah, this is a new avenue I can explore. It's one of the biggest brands in that niche, and I think it was a great video as a result of it. Even if I say so myself, I think it was brilliant. So that was probably my biggest win. Love that question though, Rob. I was waiting for this question from the UK, so I have to ask: are you watching the coronation tomorrow? I am working again tomorrow, although I'm only working for half the day. So I don't know. I'd be totally honest, Rob. I don't know what the schedule is with the coronation, because I think the coronation's on Monday, isn't it? I think the stuff happens tomorrow, and then there's a concert on Sunday, I think, although that clashes with the F1, which is a bit annoying. And then Monday, I think, is the actual coronation when they do all the coronation-y stuff. So I'll watch bits of it. I was in London yesterday coming back from Brussels, and it's just absolute chaos. There's an air of excitement about it, but it's just people everywhere. So St Pancras Station was literally a hellhole. It was just, I've never seen it so busy, and I guess it was related to the coronation. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. Sandra, Biggest potential challenge to your business other than AI and biggest opportunity? Biggest potential challenge? I think actually it's just the sheer weight of people who are coming into YouTube, and that's not a bad thing at all. I'm running Solo Club because I want to help people do this stuff. But I think the more people that come into, particularly into tech YouTube, the thinner the influence for all of us spreads. And you've got to be you've got to be really good, and you've got to be certainly very committed and kind of conscious of what like I've been saying at the start of this video, what it's actually like to run these sort of channels. Um, You've got to be very conscious of that to keep at it. And although it's not a threat for my business, but it just bothers me a little bit that there's going to be, there already is so many tech channels, and there's only really a handful of them that are really good. I'm not really counting myself in that because that'd be way too, I'm British. I don't talk like that about myself. But there's so many tech channels that I watch that are so good, and I don't know. I think it kind of dilutes it a little bit, possibly, maybe. Biggest opportunity. Yeah, that's a good question. I think whatever happens this year I think we're in a really interesting thing with Apple. I know we're getting into tech here, but this is kind of related to the business. Whatever Apple does next, whatever Apple does at WWDC is absolutely pivotal, I think. And that's because of AI, because AI has completely stolen all the headlines. Whatever they do, whether it be a VR headset or something we haven't thought about, will drive a lot of the narrative. But they are now punching against this AI thing, which they weren't doing last year or the year before that or the last 10 years. So it's a really fascinating time. And in terms of an opportunity for my YouTube channel, it's just so much stuff to talk about and analyze and work out which things people are finding the most interesting. So that's, I think, the biggest opportunity for me personally. Again, I won't try and pronounce that, but thanks for your question. How many videos or podcast episodes do you produce in advance? So podcast episodes for this channel, for Solo Club, I've filmed 6 of them so far. That's the most content I've batched in my life. I've not edited any of them yet, but I will start doing that in the next couple of weeks. So that's a bit of an outlier, really. But in terms of how many videos I produce in advance, the maximum I ever have scheduled on Mark Ellis Reviews is 3. But that's quite rare. There's normally maximum, probably, in fairness, average 2 scheduled. Hopefully that answers your question. Persona 1600 would love to know your opinion on whether an 18-month war chest is enough to commit full-time to your own business and content marketing around it. 18 months is perfect, I think. So I went into this business with a significant war chest in the bank. I spent this from a lot of hard work, obviously, but the fact that I was quitting my previous stuff at the time that Jen was pregnant, it was a time when it was really important to have some money in the bank to ensure that I could pay myself if all this stuff came crashing down, which it always can. So stuff can go wrong. So I'd never jump into this without any money. But an 18-month war chest, essentially, to me, would mean that if everything disappeared, you could still pay yourself for 18 months. You could pay yourself, pay the bills, feed yourself, look after whoever it is that you need to look after, and have a bit left aside for enjoying yourself, because you only live once. But 18 months, yeah, I think it is. And I think in terms of the content marketing around it, it depends what you're going to do. But if you are doing this kind of thing, the content marketing kind of takes care of itself. It's the stuff that you're creating becomes your content marketing. But yeah, 18 months, if you can do that, is spot on. It's probably, is it more than I had? Possibly. Let's have a look. Here we go. Again, I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Do you drink much coffee/energy drinks? I don't know if I'm coming across like I do at the moment, but I drink probably too much coffee. I love coffee, always have done. But I don't. I do have. I probably, on average, I probably drink 2 or 3 cups a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it's probably too much still. Energy drinks, I never drink energy drinks. I've never drank a can of Monster in my life. I've had the odd Red Bull here and there, but yeah, I've never drank anything else. I don't trust them, really. You hear horror stories, don't you? And also I know how much sugar is in them. I don't technically know, but I'm aware there's a lot of sugar in them, and I know that sugar's not good for you. So yeah, I stay away from that. Mark, did you notice a sub threshold where the YouTube algorithm started recommending your content more? So a noticeable uptick in unsubscribed views as opposed to subs. No, I don't look at I'm terrible with analytics to be honest, Mark. But I don't look deep enough certainly to spot that. I don't think the YouTube algorithm works like that. I think again, you learn a lot of this stuff the more you do it. But I had this kind of belief or kind of inherited belief that you hit a certain threshold of subscribers and then it went, I even spoke to a YouTube agency about this ages ago, probably 18 months ago, and they said, oh yeah, when you hit 50 60k, yeah, you won't believe it just goes. That's utter rubbish. That isn't the case. You're only ever as good as your last video. I firmly believe that. I think the way that your channel performs in terms of bringing subscribers in fact, I know this is the case because it happens way too regularly to be a fluke or to not be consistent. If you have an absolute stinker of a video, so if you have one or two videos which don't perform well at all, I can guarantee that your sub growth will fall off a cliff for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, until you have a 1 out of 10, a really, really good performing video, and then magically the sub count picks up again. So I don't think I don't really think it has any bearing on the sub threshold or the number of unsubscribed views, all that sort. I don't think any of that plays into effect. I think it's literally you are as good as your last video when it comes to the cadence of subscribers that you're bringing in. It fascinates me, but I think that's the case. Jakob, thanks for your answer to the questions. Thank you, Jakob. Jakob's one of the most common attendees of these live streams. I'm just going through and see if I've missed any questions. Keep them coming if you've still got them. I'm somehow holding 27 people on this live stream, which is great. Anything else? Mark, such a great answer. I can't remember what I said then, Mark, but hopefully it was okay. Okay, Alex is heading off. I think we're probably near the end, guys. I can't see any more questions coming. I don't want to miss any questions. If I have missed your question, I'm sorry, but like I say, it is just me doing this. I don't have any. I need Jen actually to do the question. Maybe I should get her. She is busy looking after our, raising our son as I speak. So that's fair enough, really. But I should get someone in to help with this, shouldn't I? I don't think I've missed any questions. I think we're there. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there because we're approaching an hour now. Oh, we've got a question. We'll have one more question from Luxury. Love that name. That looks how it should be spelled. I assume that's why you've gone for it. It genuinely looks like you should spell luxury like that. Hi, Mark. What are your thoughts on starting a website? Which platform would you use if you were first starting out? Is Squarespace decent? I've got very limited experience with Squarespace. I tried it years and years ago, but no recent experience to be of any use. I'm very much a WordPress guy. I'm not an expert, but I've spent many years either building or kind of looking after WordPress websites. When I say building, I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer at all, but I know how to build a WordPress site from a template or by tweaking templates and all that sort of stuff. So the Marketers Reviews website, which isn't exactly the most beautiful, incredible thing in the world, mainly because of all the ads, apologies. But that was built from me from the ground up. And I just find WordPress personally quite easy. It's a bit fiddly and occasionally it can, it has the downside of having to use plugins, which can be a bit problematic. But if you keep things simple, it's quite easy to use. So my recommendation for that is WordPress. And there's so much help out there that you can get. So yeah, that would be we've got more questions now, haven't we? Let's answer these as well. What about sharing the topic of the next live session in advance? Possibly, Jakob, although I'll be totally honest with you, quite often the topic for this live session is thought of half an hour before. That wasn't the case with this one. I did think of it this morning, but equally it's quite, I might do. I'll see, I'll have a think. If I do that, what I'll do, I'll put the topic of it as the title of so you can see that when you kind of look at which ones are coming up. Good question though, good point. Mark, if the algorithm so badly hurts your numbers after a bad video, I wonder how many people burn out on the need to produce top ranking content one after the other. This is the biggest problem with YouTube, Mark. And if anyone on this stream hasn't seen it before, if you go into the YouTube Studio app on your phone, the first thing you see pretty much is how the most recent video has performed out of the last 10 videos. So a 1 out of 10 video is doing amazingly. A 10 out of 10 video is doing dreadfully. And it's a really big mental challenge, this, for creators, because it completely ignores the potential of a video to do well later on. A 10 out of 10 video, I've had this happen. I know lots of YouTubers have this. A 10 out of 10 video in 3 months' time, in a year's time, might completely blow up because something happens related to that video and people start watching it. But YouTube Studio on the mobile app, at least, it works on this kind of dopamine hit thing where you're kind of encouraged just to focus on the current video's performance, and it's very hard not to. I do think, like you say, that this probably I can never remember what the percentage of YouTube channels that are started and then abandoned is, but it's very high. Like a lot of businesses, actually. I think the reason for that is because people probably do burn out. They think, okay, I've had another 10 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 or a really annoying 7 out of 10, which is like, it's just nothing, is it? It's only when you get into the kind of 4s, 3s, 2s, and obviously 1s where things are exciting. And if you never see that early on, then I don't blame you for thinking, why am I bothering? If you've done that for 2 years and you're just thinking, I've never had a decent 1 out of 10, or my last 50 videos have been 8 or 9s out of 10, then but that isn't the creator's fault, because those videos aren't necessarily bad. It's more likely that for whatever reason, they're not ready for that particular time when they were launched. So it's a problem, I think. Really, it's something that YouTube needs to work on, and people talk about it a lot. It's not as though this is a hidden thing. A lot of people talk about that top 10 table. This is a tech question. I'll answer this one, but you probably weren't on the stream to begin with. Just a reminder, really, that this isn't a tech channel, so I don't want to kind of people who come on here to talk about the kind of business of creation and solopreneurship and stuff. I don't want to kind of bore them too much with my answers to to tech questions, but I'll answer the occasional one, and I'll make an exception again for this. So my current setup is an iPhone 12. Plus iPad Air 4, I'm guessing. I'm considering going tech minimalist and to replace with the iPhone 13 mini and iPad mini. Yes, just do it, because those two devices, the 13 mini and the iPad mini 6, are amazing. The two of the best things that Apple has ever made. YouTube user, I have no idea how to change my name to my real one. I'm new to YouTube. Can you tell? It's somewhere in the settings. I'm not sure where. It's probably in your Google account. I know Google makes this stuff very kind of convoluted these days, but you probably find that you have to go into your Google account and change it in there. And the honest answer is I don't know. But do a bit of Googling. Have a look in your Google account. You'll probably find it in there somewhere. Right. Okay. Guys, I'm going to stop there because we are literally approaching the hour mark, and I'd love to keep these to an hour, just to not put people off who want to watch them after the stream. I think if people see 3 hours, they might think, I'll give that a miss. You can definitely have too much of me. So thanks so much for coming on, guys. Most of you have stuck around for the entire stream, which is amazing. And this happens every single week. Remember, please, to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. I've just noticed that I haven't put a description in this video yet. So what I would normally say now is, and also please subscribe to my Substack newsletter. But if you look for it in the description, it ain't there. So I'll put that in after this stream. And whatever you're doing this weekend, enjoy. If you're celebrating the coronation, then have a good time. If you're not celebrating that, have a good time. I'm waffling now, and I've got to that stage now where I can't remember how to stop the broadcast. Now I remember, it's fine. But thanks, guys. I'm going to stop talking now and let you get on with your weekends. See you next week. Cheers.